As I'll be leaving the company in a week's time, I thought it might be an opportunity just to reflect upon the company's position and some of the opportunities open to the company going forward. And they're not just little opportunities. I believe they are massive opportunities, huge opportunities, not just for the company, but more importantly, even for the construction industry here in New Zealand. What I'm saying here is not intended to be a replacement for the current strategic plan or taking away the work which needs to be done by the strategic consultants whom we have got engaged. It is rather to support both the strategic plan updating and the strategic work by these consultants. Looking at where MasterSpec is today, it is in a unique situation, a unique place where it is owned by industry organizations, where it is established in the marketplace, has got a very strong brand, a trusted brand, and it has got a large market share. 97 of the largest 100 architectural practices in New Zealand trust and depend upon the MasterSpec resource for their specifications. And growing areas, of course, in the other areas like the engineers, where we've made already a substantial inroad into getting greater market shares as well. However, the opportunity there is wider than just the specifiers involved in preparing documentation for a new project. I would like to have a look at, first of all, the situation where we are in at the moment. The markets which have been established some time back as individual silos of information. These individual markets here of CAD, of specification, of product databases, cost information, compliance information, and so on. It's the maintenance information for built-up buildings and so on. These markets are clearly changing and have already changed to some extent, where these individual segments become far more closely connected, overlapping into each other, opportunities for connectivity left, right and center. It is in this situation here where those who stay fixed in their own silos remain and will over time be overtaken. It is the opportunity where information is integrated with other information. In other words, the connectivity is where the opportunities for growth lie. And it's these areas I would like to talk more about that path MasterSpec has been on for a number of years by now. So in this market here, we can look at this now in a life cycle, construction life cycle, build life cycle dimension, where we've got here the design, specify, consent, cost, construction and the maintenance of the facility, and up here the coverage, which we are already covering or which we can extend into. What we currently have is here particularly the area of specify. Very strong. We've got a range of different tools. We've got external data flowing into our specification data, like 700 different standards, brands appraisals and so on, flowing right into it to create a real strong resource. And that's what the market has largely known us for. Part of this can be used in the design process as well, but we are really focusing and have been very, very strong in there. Current work has been in the consent area, We have done research in the construction area, and we have been actively involved in defining a New Zealand standard for maintenance work. What are the criteria needed to output in data for a building once it's constructed for its maintenance work and facilities management? The opportunity is in all these different stages here to create the connectivity. Data which is input at the beginning, part of that is required all the way through the construction project. The important thing is to understand that the data needs to flow. It needs to be input correctly in a structure which facilitates the output during the later stages of the life cycle. No point of having something in here in a silo of information which can't be extracted in a suitable format for a later stage. The focus really is on two things. One is quality, lifting the quality, the accuracy of the information, and the other one is the efficiency of the information. As information can be drawn from existing resources which have been established and approved at the beginning, the opportunity really comes in to then utilize the same information without having to go and re-enter the data, or extracting and re-enter the data in a manual format at the later stage. So the opportunity really is for us to grow this area here further. We have particularly focused on creating connectivity in this field here, and I would like to come back to that in a moment. The opportunities are also along this life cycle here. We've done substantial work in understanding what happens at the consenting place as projects are submitted for consenting, and the challenges in there. We've seen that those which haven't got the consenting documentation, hasn't used an established framework like master spec as its source, we have seen substantially poor documentation flowing through into the consenting, and then of course into the construction phase as well. So it's an important quality aspect to lifting the quality of the end result by having the right information available in the right format. Cost information, we haven't done a lot of work, but we have seen internationally at the recent International Construction Information Society conference, the connectivity to cost information is one of the big drivers of some of our parallel companies located in Denmark, in Switzerland, in Czech Republic, in the UK and so on. That connectivity into the cost information, be it for estimating the initial cost or for being at the level of more calculating the cost information, is a key aspect of creating connectivity from here into a cost portal. Construction, we have done a research project among construction companies a couple of years ago to figure out what information do they require which is already available at an earlier stage, and the opportunity there to utilize that knowledge and create a special interface for construction companies so they can utilize existing information and add intelligence to it, and then create automated processes for their work. Modeling of the construction processes to facilitate improvements and efficiency during the construction process is another great tool, another great saver of cost and time for construction companies. And then of course is the maintenance work, where information from here is required particularly for commercial industrial buildings, to maintain these buildings. So we're not talking about light bulbs changing, we're talking about systems, particularly building systems, and what are the components of it, what does it consist of, what information is already in the system and can be further complemented by as-built information from the construction company and output into the facilities management. So the whole flow of information here is an opportunity uniquely open to Masterspec. There's no one else we can see in the construction industry here in New Zealand undertaking this work, which needs to be there to lift, to complement and lift the efficiency and the quality of the construction information, of the construction industry. One of the core area of developments at the moment is in this field of specifying and designing, creating a more usable resource than we already have. Internationally, Masterspec is one of the leading areas in delivery of specification and specification knowledge systems. This has been acknowledged just a couple of weeks ago at that conference, at that ICIS conference, by the UK NBS, having launched their new smart specification system, and the Danish company interested in our development work and our cloud-based server and the functionalities which are made possible through that. However, we see there is a lot more opportunities open to us to take things much further, and the key word in there is connectivity. And it is in this area here where we have got a lot of resources already, where we can do more and better. Not just for this area, but once it's established here, to make it available downstream in an intelligent, smart way. The core area, what we've got here is we've got a clause specific database. In other words, the granularity of information on our server is by clause, and as a result of that, we can automate some of the specification sections at the clause level, and that has proven to be a major winner and support we're getting from the market through our what we refer to as Q&A, when a designer can answer some questions and it automatically then selects the right clauses underneath and assembles them into a work section. The next step for us, and we are already 12 months into that project, is to reduce to make the granularity of the information smaller, and particularly in the product specific areas, where at the moment we can have one clause detailing a product and the designer then having to enter some of the metadata, the size, the coefficient and so on, they're requiring of that product, or even a brand to be entered at that point. And that additional data needs to be entered currently in a manual format because it's within a clause. We have over the last 12 months worked on getting that design, that's a greenfield design of the product specific data in a very small granularity established. We've got now the blueprint, we've got a prototype operational, and we're now moving into the production phase of that project. That project will lead us to have products and their properties available for selection. No longer will a designer need to type in the information. They can then select from what is being presented to them, what is appropriate for a particular project. That will then be a digitally defined product with its properties, and that information can then also output and made available into the design phase, into the CAD information, into the BIM information, and input into that three-dimensional information model. It will first of all create in the specification area a smarter, more accurate, a more efficient way of working for designers, be they architects, engineers, landscape architects, and so on. So it will create a fuller model more efficiently, and through that create a better quality document at the end. So through selections, not nearly all of the information can be generated rather than having to be typed in. This creates a far more defined way of working and creates information management, which is only going to be available if that granularity is at that smaller level, exposed then to the different life stages of the built environment. The key next step from once that is established is to output that into a BIM model, into CAD, to expose it in there. And so the information is not held in two different places. One gets changed and the other one doesn't get changed, and there's a potential danger for that. But the information is held in one place and feed into the other. So one changes and the other one gets updated. And this creates a much stronger information resource at the end, which can be modeled, which can be output into many different ways and create efficiencies and qualities. This information, when I discussed it with MB representatives, they said, hey, this is exactly what we need for a national product database. Somewhere where we can record and allocate specific properties and products and their level of consenting possible. This, when we talked it through with GS1 and with other organizations holding product-specific databases at distribution level, like at GS1, where they hold all the products at SKU level, including the individual cost information against that. They said, hey, this is exactly what we want to connect to, because we can then provide cost information, and that allows then people to create far better costing models as a result. Now, this big vision we've got here, where digital data can support the construction industry in its effort for increased quality and increased efficiency, is not something which we as Masterspec have to do on our own. More importantly, I believe it's critical that we partner with partners already in these different information domains, but for us to allow that connectivity to flow through, where we hold the information at the beginning of our construction project already on our server. Having migrated all our total information resource to the cloud, to a dedicated server or servers, we hold all the information in here. And that's not just the information which our editors maintain on an up-to-date basis, on a constant revolving cycle. It's also the information which is fed in by our partner organizations, standards, New Zealand standards, brands appraisals, product compliance, product data templates, and so on. It's also then designers actually working right there in that area, and we retain the information which they create in there for the individual projects, which means that we can have an understanding of what is the construction industry doing on an actual up-to-date basis, on a real lifetime basis, even before it gets to a building consent. Other information flowing in is we have about 230 of the key product manufacturers who depend upon us to translate their technical information into specification data, and we work with them to create that and integrate it to be live in our cloud-based resource. So this means we hold a massive amount of product information, of project information in there in our cloud server. And this allows us to aggregate such information and output quite smart digital advanced information. Things like calculate a construction index activity report ahead of any government compliance-based information. We can calculate our own market share, which is about 50% in value of the total building market or construction market. We can provide detailed information for product manufacturers, even though we choose not to identify individual projects or individual designers. The information which we can expose them is aggregated and provides still very valuable information, which some of them depend highly upon their own forecasting. And there's a range of other information which we can get out. This is just an example of the new era we're in with operating with such a cloud server. The other area which I referred to right at the beginning is connectivity. Connectivity of data, which we looked at, but also connectivity between stakeholders within the construction industry. And I think it's important to see that this is our opportunity to have connectivity in both areas and complementing each other. In November 2018, MB released a report which they had commissioned earlier through the Saperi Group on the liability outcomes of the building sector. And that report concluded that there was a claims level of $4.6 billion over the previous 10 years in claims across the construction industry's various stakeholders. $4.6 billion over 10 years. Massive sum. For various different reasons, these claims have been mounted. This figure is possibly just one of the indicators of the level of issues facing the construction industry and the calls for solutions. While the reasons behind the claims are various, some of the areas can be resolved and can be addressed. And in particular, looking at ways of the quality communications, which can be achieved through digital communications, and not just information, but connected digital information. And this is what I want to talk about here, the opportunity MasterSpec has got. In the construction industry, we've got many pieces of software which are used, many sophisticated pieces of software performing various tasks from simulations to cost calculations to scheduling and so on. The challenge with the programs is that they operate often in domains, in information domains, which are silos. In other words, these information domains are specific for an individual task, not for a whole life, for the whole life cycle of a project or of a building. And it is in that area where huge opportunities lie to connect up these information silos, find ways of doing that. And that is exactly where I believe the opportunities are for MasterSpec. We're in a very fortunate situation, having got a very strong position in the market with the brand, with the amount of penetration we have into the design market, and the shareholders giving us access to not just design but also to the construction, to the build area, and through our contacts and involvements right into the consenting and facilities management areas as well. What I wanted to have a look at here is some of that connected digital information, how at one specific level, how that can work out. We've got here one of the old traditional areas of challenge. We've got the specification in a Word format, and we've got the drawings here in a CAD format. The two by definition can't talk to each other. This is now being challenged, of course, and the opportunity here is to look at ways of holding digital information at fine granularity as part of the specification, not just in a separate document, but actually live in the cloud server, something which we do right now address. We've got it in digital format, but we're working on the granularity. I'll come back to that with more. This information is critical for embedding into CAD. So we don't have discrepancies between the two. We can source the information live from the same source on in one place. You edit it in one and it changes it in the other. Here we're simulating the information being fed into the specification. Of course, the specification itself is live in the cloud, so there's a natural direct connection there. When a CAD object or a BIM object is used as part of a drawing, as part of a model, that information can be fed and appended or linked to that model, to the individual building object in that building model. So it works with the same amount, same type of information, the same source of the information live on the web. This is one of the examples we're working right now, first in here and then feeding it through a live link into objects. A precursor of this is operational, very well received in the market. We're calling it Master Key. This is a precursor of this live documentation. What we're looking at here will go into more higher level of connectivity and more details exposed directly on the drawings in the model, which is held on the live server and can be looked up in the specification as well. The interesting thing is, once this information is held here, the same or similar information is helpful for different applications, downstream applications as well. In this case here, this digital product specific information is needed to feed into here through an interface or a plugin. In case of costings. There are similar information can be output through a different interface in case of purchasing and logistics. Again, the information is not in the same, doesn't need to be the same, but it can, through a specific interface, be extracted from the wealth of information already held here, which has been entered by the design professionals in that case. For construction too, the ability to output a range of different information pieces, be they warranties, be they products, specific products to be used on the job, be it access to live information on execution of the work to be done for a particular product or particular element. This is all information in here, and through a researched application and then custom interface application, that information can be output specific for the needs and the application of a contractor. The same then goes for facilities management. There's a certain amount of information which is required, and that can be, as a result, also be accessed from in here. Now, not all information is going to be residing in here right from the beginning. Certain information need to be fed in during the process and through these specific interfaces. That is all possible, so that the ability to have connected digital information output in a suitable format for the various stakeholders becomes reality. Now, there's various different models of getting funds, getting input, getting revenue from these different applications possible. There's quite a bit more research to be done on the individual applications. The technology, however, is here, the vision is here, and I believe the opportunities for MasterSpec to make a tangible difference for the construction industry. As one of the first output from the digital information at a finer granularity level, is going to be the opportunity to create specification details, not by typing them in, but by just selecting. This is a project which we have been working on for 12 months. We're calling it Product Selector, and the opportunity is what we currently have is the information. Some of the information here in the specification is needs to be filled in manually, needs to be typed in by a designer. We're marking it up as a tilde, and that information needs to be typed in. The opportunity now is to use the finer granularity information and allow designers to choose what they want rather than having to type it in. This means that we are introducing a new wizard right into the specification, start product selection wizard, where the information can be selected. Click on it, opens a dialog box, and here we can see the options become available, the products which are available in the market, and the downstream, the refinement, the attachments, and so on can be added to it. So the end result is specific data. It's not just typed in data which a machine or a computer can't read. It is specific identified data, has got GUIDs attached to it, so it can be identified, can be connected to other output requirements, for example to costing information. It can be connected that way, sourcing information, simulations, even product codes for a manufacturer potentially. So the information is then added here specifically through that selection process, and the efficiency which is generated, the quality is enhanced, and the chance of the specification, the project specification, being fuller when it's being issued for consenting and for construction is much higher too, because it's easy, it is more detailed, and it's calling out just for some clicks rather than having to go and research information and type it in. So that's one of the output, the first output we are looking at implementing. We've got this as a prototype at the moment, but there's much more work to be done to take the information we already have but transfer that into that digital connected data resource. As part of this connectivity, we have recently completed the project which builds upon that, the technical connectivity together with the communication among stakeholders. A project we refer to as Intech Support. It uses the cloud-based platform as the both technical and communication facilitator of the information when a designer is involved with creating a project. They want some additional information on a particular element from a manufacturer. They can request specific details through the cloud server and through the interface which we provide to the manufacturer, request what they want, and then the manufacturer uses their intimate knowledge and provides that back to the designer as a recommendation inside the specification text, which the designer then can evaluate and, if appropriate, accept and adopt. And all happens through that facility. The same system conceptually can be used for other downstream applications, talking about consenting, talking about cost information, talking about quantity output, qualitative and quantitative output of products and information. And of course then for the construction phase, looking at compliance information, looking at as-built, looking at guarantees and so on. And of course extended further from that to the output for facilities management. Because we've got a data server in the cloud, this is an opportunity also to use what we've got, the data structure, the facilities, the server type in different geographic locations. Example, Australia, where naturally the content is somewhat different, then it would need to be adjusted for that geographical destination and for their particular laws, building regulations. But the infrastructure we've got here and we're building up further can be deployed so easily. It doesn't matter where it is located, it can be easily duplicated. So it's another opportunity to take advantage of that facility which we are creating here and have already created to some extent to use it to the advantage of both master spec as well as an overseas market, to provide that level of sophistication in that market too. So this is a further opportunity for us to take. One of the strengths of this facility here is that the information never leaves the system. It's all contained, it's formatted correctly, it's integrated into the project specification, which in that case the architect or the engineer is already working in. It comes in the right format. It's not another PDF just somewhere floating around or some outdated information. It is real life data, and it's in the right format, and it's contained in the right format inside the specification, or in the future the drawings for that matter as well. So the facility which we've got here can then also be extended, extrapolated and extended into the other phases, the further downstream phases of the product life cycle. and of the building life cycle as well. The opportunities are there. It's just a question of how quickly and what resources do we need to engage to achieve some of these real solutions the construction industry, I believe, needs and is waiting for quality and for efficiency gains. If MasterSpec was on the share market, I think I would invest into it because there is some substantial gains to be made for all parties.